The advice and opinions expressed by the hosts of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. We got a great show coming up for you, including a great guest, Jessica Lee, who is from Neurotalent Works, is going to be joining us in just a few minutes. We're going to be talking about employment and a little bit about our jargon of the day and what's happening in the world. I am Shannon Penrod, so thrilled to be here with you guys this morning. I want to give the programming note. This show was pre-recorded because we are not yet in our studio and we needed to pre-record this, but it's premiering live right now to you guys on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. We hope that you will participate there. You can still be writing in your questions and they can still be answered. So I hope that you will participate in that. Don't forget that we have two very robust YouTube channels that we encourage you guys to check out. There's Autism Live and there's also Ask Dr. Doreen. Those are there to be your guide. We've been doing shows for over 14 years. It's very possible that we've covered the topic that you're interested in, or that we have covered the word that you're looking in, like, I don't know what this means in the jargon of the day. Or any one of a million other things, had the guest on that you'd most like to hear, or answered the question that is burning in your mind today. Never forget that at the Autism Network, our entire mission here is to provide information and inspiration. We've been doing that for over 14 years. Craziness, right? But what a thrill, what an honor to be here. If you watch the show, you know I identify as a proud pony. That is a parent of a neurodiverse individual, and I'm very happy and proud to refer to myself in that way. By the way, those are the words that my son and that he gave me and that I agreed to describe my relationship to his diagnosis that he got when he was a child. So I apologize if those are words that do not ring for you. I hope that you will accept that they ring for us, and we will accept whatever words you use to describe yourself and your position here in this beautiful, but sometimes challenging community. As I said, we want to provide information and inspiration, and we always say that the audience that we are speaking to starts with individuals who are themselves on the spectrum, whatever words they use to choose to define that, right? We believe that's a very personal thing, and want everyone to feel free to identify how they identify. But so we start with those individuals, right? Because they're the beating heart of our community. But then from there, we include everyone who loves those individuals. We think that that's a very important aspect of this. I am one of those people in the parent role. But we never want to usurp that other voice either. I want to be clear about that. But that's what we're here for, to spread information and inspiration to those who are interested. I mentioned we're going to have our amazing guest in just a few minutes, but you watch the show, we talk about jargon of the day. I do want to say quickly, because I left it out, we're doing this in a different format, throwing me off. But you're probably, if you're watching us live, as I said, you can comment. If you're watching us in podcasts, we are available wherever you get your podcasts as a free download. It is free to you. I hope you know that it is not free to produce it, but we defray that cost with sponsors. So we hope you're embracing the sponsors that play during your podcast. If that's not something you're embracing, there is a way for you to pay a small monthly fee to get everything that we do here, and it shows up in your inbox with no ads. To do that, you go to Glow, like glowworm, glow.fm/autism live. When you subscribe for $5 a month, you get everything we do here. It shows that's everything. Ask Dr. Doreen, all the parent to parents, Autism Live, Let's Talk Movies, today's hyperfixation, whatever we've got that's new, it shows up in your inbox, and it is free of ads for that low price. I sound like a car salesman now. For that low price of $5 a month. All right. Having said that, we want to jump into the jargon of the day. And oddly enough, we've never done this jargon before. We certainly have been talking about this subject for years, but we've never done it as jargon. Seems like we need to get a little clarification on what is DEI. So let's take a look at what our Google AI tells us that DEI stands for diversity, equity, and inclusion. I'm going to be real honest here and tell you that the first time I heard this, I kind of, it's easy to do. I mixed up the letters and I kept saying, well, DIE, well, that spells die. We don't want to die, but we would like diversity, equity, and inclusion, at least ways I would. So Google AI tells us that that stands for diversity, equity, and inclusion. And it's a framework used to promote the fair treatment and full participation of all people, particularly those who have been historically underrepresented, under, underrepresented, that has a lot of syllables in it, or discriminated against. I laugh, but it's a very, very serious subject and one that's very near and dear to my heart, and I hope to yours as well. Because you may be, or you may love someone who is historically underrepresented or discriminated against, right? When it's close to home, it feels different. So let's see. I mean, this is all nice and it's cute and whatever, but there's so much discussion about this in the public. I don't know that this really fairly tells us what does it actually mean. So let's go through some of the guidelines. Let's take it word by word. Let's take a look at diversity. Diversity is recognizing and appreciating the wide range of human differences, including race, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, age, ability, and more. And included in that, we would put people who are neurodiverse, right? That's part of the diversity. When we think about, I don't know, just think about your friends for a moment. And how many of your friends would fit into a category here that would put them into a minority or a disenfranchised group? I don't know about you, but it's certainly a large swath of the people that I know and love. Um, and, it's just a consideration to think, should those individuals have a less of an opportunity, less of an ability, less access to work, and many other things? I can't sleep at night if that's the case. I don't know about you. Let's go on to equity. We talk about equity a lot of time. Equity is ensuring fair and just treatment for all, acknowledging that people may need different supports and resources to achieve equal outcomes, according to the UN Global Compact. We show a cartoon all the time that shows the three boys they're standing on the ground in the first one, and they're trying to look over a fence to see a baseball game, right? But one of the boys is tall. And by virtue of nothing else, he didn't work for it. He just happens to be tall. He has a perfect view of the baseball field and he can watch the whole thing. Then the next young boy is not as tall, but he's still got some height, and the fence hits him right about through the eye line. So he can see over it just enough to see part of the game, but he's not seeing the full game. And that isn't because of anything that he did or deserved. It's just genetics and he's shorter, And then the last young man is significantly shorter and he can't see over the fence at all. So that baseball game to him isn't happening. He can hear the cries of the crowd, but he's not hearing that. And what equity says is, we're going to put a box that's just appropriately sized underneath the person who is not quite tall enough so that they can see over the fence. And for the kiddo who couldn't see at all, we're going to put a box that's deep enough that he can stand on it and he can see over the fence. Now, all three of them have an equal opportunity to see what is happening on the baseball field. And that is what equity is. And I know that some people have a hard time with this because it feels like, well, why you gave something to two of the boys and my child is the boy that's tall. Why aren't you giving him something? He got rooked. He's the victim here because he didn't get anything. But we're just making it a fair and even playing field so that everyone can just see the baseball game. We didn't give them VIP tickets. We made it so that they could see what the other boy doesn't need something to be able to access that. So why would we give him something? But I know that sometimes people feel like, well, if you're going to give something to somebody, I want to be in that line with my hand out too. It's a hard concept, right? Because they feel like they're missing out. But the question is, did you need something? Did you need something? And some people, in order to have even basic access, need something. So, equity. And then inclusion is creating an environment where all individuals feel welcomed, respected, and valued, and where they can fully participate and contribute. And that is a quote from Inclusion Hub. In essence, DEI aims to create a more inclusive and just society by addressing systemic barriers and promoting the participation of all individuals. I know that there is a great deal of controversy swirling around this, and we are going to talk about this a little bit. But I don't mean this to be a big political discussion. I just want you to think about your child. Does your child have the right? Does your child, as a human being, deserve an opportunity to have a chance? And that's really what DEI is about. And I don't know about you, but we're going to be talking about companies that support still DEI and are continuing their DEI practices. And I'm making it my business to spend my dollars at those places. Like, and I just give a shout out to Costco. Yes, Costco, I'm your girl because, and every time I go there and I spend money there, and I've spent more money there because there's other places I'm not going to. Because if you're not upholding these ideals, we can go back to where we were, and we will. And I've been there, and it's not a good place. And I'll tell you something, you and I and everybody in this community, we have an opportunity here to make sure that we stand up for the individuals that we love and stand up for ourselves in some cases, because what I want to be clear here is that DEI doesn't say give a job to someone who isn't capable of it. And I know that that's a lot of what the rhetoric is about this. That's not what it says. It says creating an environment and giving access, because everybody doesn't have the same access. It's just true. But it doesn't mean taking something away from anybody. And it doesn't mean putting people who aren't qualified. In fact, it's quite the opposite. What it helps to do is make sure that companies can get access to people who are highly qualified, but may have been overlooked for a reason that should not have disqualified them. So there we are. I hope that you'll enjoy. We're gonna take a break in a second, and I'm gonna stop sharing that. We're going to take a break, and then in a second, we're going to bring a wonderful guest. As I said, Jessica Lee is going to be with us from Neurotalent Works. She's going to be talking about what they do to help ensure that companies can have access to a wonderful talent pool of people. Some of them are kids, right? And what that is like in this climate and what they're working on and how amazing of a job that they're doing. So stick with us. We're going to be back with Jessica after these messages. Welcome back to Autism Live. As I promised you, I've got a great guest. Jessica Lee from Neurotalent Works is with us. I've been waiting for this interview. She is the executive director and co-founder of Neurotalent Works. It is a nonprofit organization that we're going to be talking with her much more about. They partner with companies to advance neurodiversity inclusion. A diversity of minds is what they like to say. In the workplace and connecting employers to neurodivergent talent. And they define, because I think this is wonderful, they define define neurodivergent talent as individuals with cognitive distinctions such as autism, ADHD, and traumatic brain injuries. Jessica is a passionate individual. She is so passionate about raising awareness and appreciation for neurodiversity in the workplace as an impetus to drive societal change toward belonging and human connection. I mean, don't we want to crochet that onto a pillow? She is a very sought after speaker who has delivered impactful presentations to local and global audiences at hundreds of companies and events. So if you love her, and I know you will, and want to have her speak, we're going to tell you about how you can connect with her. Jessica and Neurotalent Works have been featured in Harvard Business Review, Forbes, and other media outlets, and now they can include Autism-Live. She is also a published author and a thought leader on neurodiversity, and published a research paper with the American Enterprise Institute entitled Embracing Neurodiversity. I'm sorry, I'm borrowing these teeth today. Embracing Neurodiversity at Work, Unleashing America's Largest Untapped Talent Pool. I think even Temple Grandin would approve of that. So Jessica, my goodness, I don't know why it's taken us so long to have you here, but I'm so thrilled that you're here with us today.
Likewise. Thank you so much for having me.
It's wonderful to have you here. There's so much that I want to talk to, but I want to give you just a minute as we start to talk about how Neurotalent Works. I'm going to mess it up 13 times so that I get it right.
Okay.
Neurotalent Works. How this came to be, and you are so passionate about this. And of course, I got to ask you why.
So. Yeah. Yes. Thank you. We started Neurotalent Works 8 years ago. My co-founders and I, Harag and Lisa, we all have loved ones that are neurodivergent. And Harag and Lisa in particular, one of their sons who, they were exploring and trying to understand some of the challenges he was having in school, and went to a conference at UCLA and heard about the 80% unemployment rate of people with autism. And were just blown away by that. With so many of their friends, our friends' children who are on the spectrum, people that we know that are educated, that have incredible skills, like being able to tell you what day of the week your birthday will be in, 2073, Wednesday, right? Just brilliant minds. And then the question of how is it possible then that there's this high of an unemployment rate? And Harag and I come from the corporate consulting world. We were on a project together, actually, having no idea that we both were looking to move our careers into something a little more purpose-driven. And the question we were asking ourselves, other nonprofits who are doing this work, we said, we come from the corporate world. There are nonprofits and government agencies getting job candidates ready, but who's helping employers get ready? Is there a need for this?
Great point. Yeah.
And the big resounding answer was yes, we need that. We need people who speak the business language, who understand the cultures of a workplace, how decisions are made around hiring and firing even, and to really be that bridge into employment, and then supporting employers to build workplaces that truly embrace a diversity of minds. So that's how we started 8 years ago, and here we are.
Well, and thank goodness, years ago when they had the character on Sesame Street, Julia, who identifies as being neurodivergent, I remember interviewing somebody and they said, in 30 years' time, this is going to have made a huge impact because every HR director will have grown up with Julia. And when somebody comes in and eye contact isn't their go-to, they're not going to mark them down at the job interview. And I thought, that's really cool. But then my next thought was, really, we got to wait 30 years for that? So I love that you guys are working on this now. And that's a wonderful thing. I know that you guys do a workshop called Understanding All Minds, and I'd love for you to tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, thank you. So we're so excited about this workshop. And it's really, if I step back, as we think about this, even from a systemic standpoint, I think one of the hardest things to do is to describe how your mind works. So this workshop and all of our training that we do for managers starts with this question. How would you describe how your mind works? And how is it similar or different to people around you? We give everyone silence and a few minutes to think about that. And I love the responses we get back because it's so creative and so interesting to hear how people describe their minds, the words they use, etc. And as we go through this, so this workshop breaks down 4 core dimensions of our minds. And I work closely with neuropsychologists and an education therapist to put this workshop together. And it's all about providing plain language to understand and describe how our minds work. This is the burden that neurodivergent individuals have and have carried for most of their lives. Parents have had to do this oftentimes with their children to get the supports they need in school. And now in the workplace, even more so. How do you explain to your manager or to an HR leader who's reviewing your accommodations request to understand why, for example, having an agenda ahead of time is going to allow you to show up and do better in a meeting, or why having recordings of a meeting are going to be helpful for note taking? Thank goodness AI is here and helping with a lot of note taking. But understanding all minds is all about all of us being able to understand this. And so first, let me understand my own mind. What are the words to describe how my mind works so that I can then begin to understand and hopefully appreciate how somebody else's mind works differently than mine. And thank goodness it does, because my weaknesses and my challenges are someone else's strengths. And so when you look at teams and companies, you're now going to be able to have a better team because we understand and can talk about our strengths and our challenges and how to support each other. And we're not calling out that it's because you have a neurodivergent team member. It's nothing about that. It's because we know disclosure is something that is so personal and so complex that we can just talk about how our minds work and what we need to do our best work. And that's what's going to matter for all of us to understand, to build a workplace that's inclusive, and for neurodivergent individuals to feel like they can be understood. So that's what this workshop is all about. And it even goes into, I use the example of when I go to sleep at night. I need it pitch black, no sounds. And meanwhile, I have friends who are the complete opposite. They need a nightlight and they need white noise. So this is nothing that we can all understand and appreciate, oh, okay, this is what it means to have a diversity of minds. I'm going to have different sensitivities to sensory inputs. That's okay. Let's talk about it and let's open a conversation about it. And that's what this workshop is doing.
That's amazing and so important. I feel like I don't know whether in the trade-off of technology with phones, we lost a little bit of perspective taking. But I feel like there is a really, for so many years, I heard after my son was diagnosed with autism, I heard about how people on the autism spectrum, they struggle with perspective taking. And I think that that's true in a lot of different cases, but I think it's true as much and more in the neurotypical world. I feel like, and my son is the one who's always my teacher. I'm sitting in the front row seat in his classroom. And I remember a time when we had been working on, we were living on a street where when you parked, oh my gosh, it was just dangerous. And I'd been working with him and with his team so that he would maintain safety protocols when we got out of the car. And it was a very rigid step-by-step because we were worried about getting squashed by, cars and trucks going by at 1,000,000 miles an hour. And he was 6, 7. So he had some understanding of that, but not others. But we really were working on this protocol and he was struggling with it. He was miss a step or try to cut. And one day it was evident to him that I was frustrated. And I said, baby doll, I just need you to do it the way we've asked you to do it. And he said to me, why? And I said, because, and I should have said because it's a safety issue, but because of his young age and I didn't want to freak him out, I said, because I just need you to, right? And he
Yeah.
looked at me and he said, "Oh, so are you on the spectrum?" And he was totally serious. He was like, "Are you having trouble doing things in a different way?" And I looked at him and I was like, "Oh my goodness." And then we had the conversation of trucks are coming and the reason why we're doing, and then he got it instantly, right?
Ah,
I was the one that needed to work on perspective taking. My
yeah.
child did have enough to understand. And it wasn't until he called it out that I realized I was the one who was being rigid
Yeah.
and that I was the one who wasn't doing perspective taking. So I always
Mm,
love it when my son teaches me.
yeah.
And I think that 9 times out of 10, um, if we could all be better at perspective taking and dealing with individuals and their individual needs without slapping labels all over the place. And,
Yes.
I think we'd be better off. So I love that you're just doing this
Yeah.
with everyone.
Yes.
What a
Oh,
powerful,
thank you.
powerful thing. Um, I I want to backtrack a little bit and say that um because the work that you guys do, you also you're engaging with the employers.
Mhm.
And I want to know what your secret is for that and how you're doing that and what methodology you bring to that, because we see that some companies seem to get it and
Yeah.
other companies are not getting it. They're not understanding. So, what is it that you guys do, and how do you guys partner with companies so that this ends up working out?
Yeah. Well, I'm looking for that magic sauce too. So I'll tell you all the ingredients though, and where we've seen success and why. Um, I think just as with any individual, every organization is so different. But recently, I've been looking back. We've worked with over 40 businesses to yeah, just in partnership, whether it's through training or through actually hiring from our talent pool. And when I look at the data of all of our business partners that actually, became something, because we're talking to businesses all the time, about 80% of them are actually individuals who have an affinity to what we're doing. Their parents, siblings, best friend's child. There's a read like they have some type of tie to somebody who's autistic or neurodivergent. And those are the champions that are oftentimes working inside companies that are just introducing us to the right HR team members or to operational managers that have open roles and are open minded and wanting to find new sources of talent. And so that's one of the big emphases that we see. It's like, and maybe that's the message to any parent that's listening or loved one, where it makes such a difference to have that warm introduction into a company to be able to then navigate and find the right teams to work with. So some companies that bring us in, we're advancing neurodiversity inclusion from a really holistic standpoint. We were first focused on employment and becoming a staffing solution where we have a talent pool of thousands of job candidates. But we also quickly found out and saw that companies and workplaces needed to be ready to embrace and bring our talent pool in. So a lot of companies start with an introduction to neurodiversity training, whether that's through, any type of lunch and learn or, all the learning and development that companies will host for their employees to do that. Or for April, Autism Awareness Month, October's Disability Employment Awareness Month. It's just those team members, employee resource groups that are focused on disabilities will bring us in to speak and to train. So there's many different ways that we work with companies. I will say that human resources, where DEI teams still are or were, and I know we'll talk about that, and legal teams. We do meet with legal often as there are some legal implications and concerns that oftentimes arise. And so a lot of our work is also trying to help mitigate and lower those concerns. So yeah, there's probably so much more I can say.
Okay.
But
and there's so many questions.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm just, because it's where my head is at. By the time this airs, I think my son will have graduated from college, because as I mentioned before, we're pre-taping this. And my son, who was diagnosed early at 2.5, it will be graduating and entering the workforce.
Wow.
And so talk to me a little bit as a parent about what might Neurotalent Works do for him. Does he have to apply?
Yeah.
How does that work? Tell me through the whole process.
Yes. Well, first of all, congratulations to you and to him. That's such an exciting and big milestone, and one to be celebrated. So we have on our website, there is a place to submit, for him to submit his resume and his information to us. And once he's in our talent pool, anytime that us or even any of our peers across the US who are also doing neurodiversity employment, we all work together. So anytime there are job opportunities that him or others might be a good fit for, we will send out, and we send out information about, just any job trainings, resources and information that can be helpful as job candidates. Unfortunately,
is there a cost for that to register with you?
There's no cost for it at the moment, which we're very grateful for. And actually a good segue, because unfortunately we've had to pause that program right now because we don't have enough funding, where typically we would be meeting with every job candidate one-on-one to offer more tailored, personalized support and suggestions. But we have a page, a talent resources page, and that has a list of all the programs, resources that are helpful for job candidates. One of the most, I think, meaningful services that we've provided is mock interviews. So if someone has an interview, to practice, because that is a skill that is learned of how to interview well. And we know it can be a more challenging one for many in our community. And so that's a service that we were providing, to do mock interviews, to provide feedback on resumes. But at the moment, we are looking for funding to continue that program so that it can be free of charge for job candidates. But even so, get into our database, get on our mailing list, and we send out opportunities as we have them.
I love that. And I just want to put it out there. If somebody's watching and has a company that wants to sponsor that kind of a program, especially if you're somebody who's wanting to hire more from this pool, and I hope that you are, what a great way to ensure that you're getting the people that you want to by helping to sponsor that program. Amazing. But I'm sick that you guys don't have the funding for it. I guess I want to pause here and say, because our jargon of the day was DEI, and things have changed recently. I mean, my goodness, a year and a half ago, I was talking to somebody and I said, look at any CEO that's doing their CEO talk for their company and for their community, their culture. And I will tell you, the number one topic, and all the top CEOs were saying this, the number one topic for the last couple of years was DEI within their company, and why it's great and why it's useful and why they were making sure that that was happening. That was what we were hearing. And that's why I did the jargon of the day, because it's so important to me that everybody realize that that is supposed to include the people that we love. Yes. Our viewership and the people that they love and the people that we love. And some things have changed, and it is impacting. I know from talking to my friends whose kids are trying to get work, or my friends who are trying to get work, there is an impact, and I'm sure that you're feeling it right at the pain point. Yeah. So talk to us a little bit about what exactly has changed, and what the repercussions of that for our community, the community that you serve, have been.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, there have been executive orders that have come out, and I think many of us know this, with the elimination of DEI as a terminology, as an initiative within federal programs, many that are under the Department of Labor that have been cut. And, one of the reasons that we saw a lot of companies engaging in disability inclusion, having these neurodiversity hiring programs, is because of Section 503, which requires any company that has a federal contract with the government of $10,000 or more, which is a very low threshold, that there had to be a good faith effort to make affirmative action, that 7% of your employees are people with disabilities, because it's a protected class and because we know that there's more discrimination against people with disabilities to employment, that there was this affirmative action that was required for federal contractors. So that's why you see a lot of the companies that had built neurodiversity hiring programs had these contracts that allowed them to then go and proactively hire from a talent pool such as ours. That has been revoked and is being reviewed. And so that has a very big implication on any intentional programs to hire neurodivergent job candidates. We're also seeing a civil rights lawsuit in 17 states that cover all protection for people with disabilities, where especially in having IEPs in schools and even accessibility, like ramps to buildings. I mean, there's not a requirement for those anymore, or it's being, tried in court. The list goes on. The Department of Education, with changes that are happening there, that has a direct impact on anybody who has services from vocational rehabilitation. So at the federal level, Department of Education is over, vocational rehab falls under the Department of Education. So any changes or any funding cuts there will have a direct impact on any VR funded programs and services. I know here in California, the Department of Rehabilitation, that about 83% of their funding comes from federal dollars. And so that is really concerning for then what services may or may not be available. And the regional centers here in California, also through the Department of Developmental Services, I believe theirs is a little lower, like 27%, that might be from federal funds. But DOR and vocational rehab are who focus on employment specifically for our community. So that's concerning.
I have to say, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but there's so many different elements to this. And I think sometimes it's funny because I just recently have started thinking of myself as old. Do you know what I mean? This is a new thing for me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm in my 60s. How did that happen? And, but it means that I've lived through many different things that I forget sometimes. Talk about the perspective taking. I forget sometimes that other people haven't lived through that. And I want to say probably 28 or so years ago, my mother, who was born with a physical disability, she had both of her feet facing backward, was considered both feet clubfoot, and was very capable. My mother hated the term handicapped.
Yeah.
She hated the term disabled, but that was how she was classified. But my mother always worked. My mother always did things. And my mother had ways throughout her life that she would hide this from employers until they got to know her, right? Mm-hmm. But it was about 28 or so years ago. My mother she had been a nurse in her life. She'd gone on to become an accountant, and she got a job working for a hospital as an accountant, which did not require her to be on her feet at all. My mother was hired and had gone through a training that was, I don't think it was even online, it was on phone. And then they had her come in for the very first time. And within 4 hours, she was let go, and they said the position had already been filled. And of course, it was that they felt that, she was not going to be able to do the job, and was devastated.
Wow.
Was just devastated, and was like, I've been being an accountant for so long, and and I don't need to use my feet to be an accountant, right? And I got to see that firsthand, what that was like for her. And I have to say, knowing my son was coming up, and being able to see that it was incentivized for companies to do better.
Yeah.
And what we were seeing, and I think what you have seen, is that companies saw that not only was it incentivized, but there was a benefit to them.
Yeah.
And we've had so much, even 60 Minutes, for heaven's sake, Anderson Cooper visiting companies and them saying, yeah, we didn't realize this is saving our tushies, having this workforce with us. So here we are. But for a company like you, how are you navigating this?
Yeah. Well, we are being flexible and pivoting. We also survived through the global pandemic right as we had started the organization. So I guess flexibility is a skill that we've learned and we've been navigating. The last thing I'll say about the DEI rhetoric, I think the other thing that has come up have been the harmful rhetoric about autism from the health and human services perspective, and some of the fears of a database and things like that are being created. And it's really concerning because of the long-term impacts of people being afraid to get diagnoses or to seek services to be supportive. And so I just want to make sure to call that out here too, of like how important it is to continue receiving the services that you need, seeking them. We've heard people who have stopped taking medications. Like that is, please take care of yourselves. And there are organizations like ours fighting for you and your respect and your privacy, because that should not be the case. And I just want to make sure to call that out because that's also come up recently. But what are we doing to overcome this? So what I will say that is encouraging is that several of our corporate partners are staying the course in terms of them wanting to continue to bring in partners like us to educate their workforce about how different minds work, and that that's actually good for all of us and for the entire workplace. And the way that we're approaching this now is like the workshop I was telling you about of understanding all minds, that this is about getting the best of all humans and all people. And so by being able to continue providing that training, companies that are forward thinking about the workplace of tomorrow knows that in order to be a good leader and to keep a business running and to have your people perform at their best, we really have to optimize their workplace practices. And they're needing new strategies and new ways of considering how you support employees. And so I can't think of anything better than understanding our brains, because this is the muscle in the mind that we use the most in work. And so the psychological safety part of being able to show up to work as you are, to be able to ask for supports that you need. One of the examples we use and talk about is like, we can all relate to what it feels like when our minds are not optimized. And that some of it is more costly for some of us, or some of our minds might already be processing or working in a different way. So for example, if you got a missed phone call from the doctor's office right now, and you saw it while we were recording this podcast together, or a missed call from your child's school, right? There's an automatic panic that you have in your mind. It's going in another direction. When we can understand that these things happen and the cost and toll it takes on our minds to then refocus and be able to do our work, that's just a human condition, and that we're always going to have these distractions, or our attention and our focus are going to take, it's going to take different things for me to come back and focus and to be able to be attentive to perform my task.
Yeah.
We know that people with ADHD are going to have different preferences, different strategies that help them focus and do their work. All of us can relate to this. can we talk about this in a way so that when I know, for my team member who picks up their child at 3 o'clock every day, like I'm respectful of that. And I know that they're going to be back online later tonight getting what they need to get done. Or somebody who, whether they have ADHD or not, needs frequent breaks, or we cannot do a meeting for more than an hour without a break. That's just going to be good for all of us. And so being able to bring these concepts to companies to understand at a minds level, we believe are going to then help all neurodivergent professionals that are already in the workplace, and then be able to consider how you might alter your hiring practices in a way that's going to be more equitable. I could go on and on about this. And I don't know how clear I'm being here, but
no, you're being great. You're being great. It just strikes me as sometimes I get frustrated because I feel like we already know this.
Yeah.
And yet it's like it's like we forgot for a minute. I can't tell you how many corporate retreats I've been at where they, we play games and it's like team building stuff. And, the highest level of companies have been doing this kind of thing for years. And what they try to do is get people to understand, where other people are coming from so the team can excel. So these aren't new ideas. What's new and what I love about what you're doing is including in that neurodiversity, because a lot of times people either don't consider what the differences might be or assume something that's incorrect.
Yes.
So I love what you're doing. Now you mentioned, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I just want to add this one thing too. 52, there's a recent statistic that came out, 52% of Gen Z self-identifies as neurodivergent. Yeah. So for any company, the generation that you are hiring for entry-level positions right now, 52% of them identify as neurodivergent and have had supports in school, they are in full acceptance of who they are and how their minds work. And they're looking for employers who embrace that, who understand that. And so to me, that's a very clear business imperative for why we need to understand and educate around what it means to have different types of learners, different forms of communication, and that it actually benefits and helps all of us.
Amen. Now, you mentioned before that people can register. Let's go through the websites. Where would people go if they want to register themselves, or if it's a parent like me who's like, my son's graduating, we got to get this young man a job. So where do they go to do that? Yeah.
So on our website, the first tab is what we do, and there's a talent readiness page.
Let's start with what's the website?
Oh, yes. Thank you. It's neurotalentworks.org. And under what we do, the talent readiness section, there's a button there for an intake form, and that's where you submit your resume so that you get onto our mailing list. And then the second one is resources. So a full page of in every stage of wherever you are in your career. So whether you are first discovering, like, what's a good job for me? What are careers that I should consider? There's a career discovery section. Then if you're looking for jobs, who are organizations and companies that have these intentional hiring programs? We have links to support you in building your resume or your LinkedIn profile, videos about preparing for interviews. And that is one of the most important things to do, is to prepare for interviews. And then if you're in jobs, if you're growing in your career, we have support groups, social groups, links there that you can go and follow. And we also provide coaching services for neurodivergent professionals that are already in jobs. And that's something that we've been loving to do with a lot of people as well.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit, because the one set of stuff that we talked about is all free. You can get those resources and everything, but talk a little bit about the coaching program, because I'm assuming that is not free. Talk to us about what you get and how much it costs and or where to go on the website to see how much it costs?
Yeah, so we are going to be redoing our website in the next month that will have the services more specifically called out then. So you're getting a preview now. What I should mention is this is very different from traditional job coaching that you might seek and receive through vocational rehabilitation services. Our coaching is more professional, coaching for people who are currently in jobs. More and more, we're getting calls from neurodivergent professionals who are mid-career, which is really neat to see, where a lot of, I think, people, especially my age, who are having children who are getting diagnosed, and then they say, oh my gosh, like, actually, that was a struggle for me in school. And then they're starting to get diagnosed or seeing some trends. And so this is one-on-one coaching to really understand just what are challenges you're facing in the workplace. And most often, it's being able to describe what these challenges are and prepare for a conversation with your manager if you're seeking support, or maybe you're not. You just need strategies to help you organize your tasks better. A lot of times what we see is confidence. People who are just starting jobs or starting a new job, where unfortunately a lot of the messaging that they've heard for so much of their lives was like, you're never going to go to college, and here they are starting a job. Or people are going to think I'm not capable. Is my manager going to think I'm not, what's a fast enough time to respond and get a task done? Or I'm doing so much work and I'm getting it done, my manager doesn't have work to give me. And then thinking like that means they're not doing a good job, but it's actually because they're doing such a good job. And making sure you're pacing your work correctly, things like that, that we're able to support. We also do coaching for managers, neurodivergent professionals, where people are disclosing to their managers, and then the companies say, hey, can you help us understand how to be a better manager? And so we love that type of coaching. And some companies who've even brought us in to do team assessments to say, we have a neurodivergent team member. How can we build better collaborative practices as a team that is going to help them? And what I love is what always helps one helps all. And the other team members are like, thank goodness we're finally doing this, to have, the norms of how we run meetings. Like, that helps everybody, because guess what? The day I'm late to a meeting, thank goodness someone's taking notes for all of us and has the action items. So it's just, there's a lot that can be done in workplaces that help neurodivergent professionals, but end up helping everybody. So I could go on and on.
Well, no, it's a great, and I love this. I have to say, I wish I'd met you 2 months ago. I had a dear friend whose son has been working, but it was time to make a career move. And she said, I'm looking for a job coach. And she said, he's working, that he knows how to work. But and she said, I've tried a couple of job coaches, but they don't understand neurodiversity. Yes. They don't understand neurodivergence. They don't understand. And so I'm paying all this money and it's not really helpful. I really need, and I was like, let me look around a little bit. I just didn't know you then, but now I know you. So I can send people to you, because it does make a difference. Yeah. And that's an important segment too, the people that are already working. Yes. But it's so in the neurotypical world, people have job coaches all the time, and we don't make any fuss about that at all. Right. We have Fortune 500 company CEOs that get job coaching. Yeah. I'm a regular.
I had a coach. Still the same coach. I couldn't have made the switch in my career without a coach who was walking alongside me. And I still knock on when I'm facing a challenge that I'm like, I need somebody else to work through this and strategize with me. And sometimes it can just be 2 or 3 sessions and we're done. It's right. So there's, I think there's a a need to expand our understanding and definition of what coaching really is. So,
and there should be no stigma attached to it for
no.
individuals who, identify as neurodivergent, because it is a very common practice that leads to success.
Yeah.
And what the disparity has been that there haven't been people who could speak to this specifically, and now there are. So that's an amazing thing. So again, the website is Neurotalent Works. I want to encourage everybody to support this, whether you have somebody that like me, getting ready to join the workforce, or you have a company and you want to sponsor some of the things that they're doing, good heavens, or you have a company and you're ready to step up and say, yes, I'd like to get trained, or I'd like to have Jessica come and speak. Just start that way. It used to be, I didn't notice it as much this April, gotta say. Everybody used to call me in February and say, Shannon, we need to bring in a speaker for our company thing. These are people I know working at all kinds of companies. They're like, who could you recommend who can speak to this for April Autism Awareness Month? And I would send people out to speak. Well, now I'll put you on the list, Jessica. But I hope that we can get back to some of the things that we were at before. In the meantime, we will weather what is and see where it will go. Is there anything else that I left out, Jessica, that you want our viewers to know?
Well, I think just for neurodivergent individuals who are listening, just want you to know how much you are known and seen. And there are still people there always have been, and there are people who are fighting and want you to have the same opportunities that everybody else does. And it's so discouraging when we see people who apply to hundreds of jobs and don't get interviews. And we know how discouraging that is. So just know there are other people who are supporting you, and there are communities that support this. And for employers and parents who work at companies that are open to just learning, that taking the first step to just learn and to be exposed to this, I think the most rewarding feedback we get when we do these trainings at companies, two things. One is every time we have somebody in the audience who says, I'm neurodivergent and I never felt safe to share that with my colleagues. But yeah, exactly what Jessica's saying. This is how my mind works. And I'm proud of it. And they send me a message saying, thank you for helping me feel seen, and to just be able to know that I work at a company that cares. And then we hear parents who say, gosh, I'm so proud to work at a company who is taking steps towards building a workplace where my child or my friend's child could work, and that this helps everybody. And, people who've never known about neurodiversity, or people who are neurodivergent because they don't have anyone in their lives, that this is a great way to introduce them. And they're so grateful to be able to just learn about something new, so that when we go to the grocery store or we're at a coffee shop, we're just going to be able to care for other people in a more human way. And that's what this is about. And that's what it's always been about. And so just want to leave that with you all, and that, we're here and would love to partner. And
there you go. I'm going to tell a quick story and then we're going to sign off here. But about 10 years ago now, I had the opportunity, I met someone whose husband was working at NASA in Houston, mission control, seriously working mission control.
Yeah.
And my kiddo was really into space. So, we were able to get a behind the scenes tour. It was like the chance of a lifetime. It was absolutely mind blowing. And while we were there, it just happened to come up that I know Temple Grandin, Dr. Temple Grandin. And this individual that gave us the tour said, oh my gosh, if you're ever talking to her, we would love to have her come and take a tour. And I said, oh, I can set that up for you if I can film it. Right.
Yeah.
I got very transactional. So then, like 6 months later, there I am at Johnson, Space Center with Dr. Temple Grandin, taking a tour with like 6 astronauts. And one of the things that Temple very generously said, "Oh, I'd like to do, if your people would be interested, I'd like to do a little talk during lunchtime for the staff." And they said, "Okay." And they have a couple of places on the campus that, so they gave her the first one and it sat about 50 people. And when she found that out, she called them back and she said, "Oh, you probably better give me something bigger." And so they were like, "Well, would this be?" And she's like, "What's the biggest thing that you have?" And it was like for 500 people. And she said, "I think we probably should go with that." And they were like, "Really? It's lunchtime. People don't come out that much." It was standing room only.
Wow.
And so many people stood up. These are people who, and their family members that worked at NASA, and said, "We don't necessarily talk about this at work, but,
Exactly.
I'm on the spectrum, or my child is, or I have 2 grandchildren that are." And I just remember standing there and watching all of the NASA people go, "Okay, I don't think we realized how much of our community is neurodiverse."
Exactly. Yes.
So anyway, that was NASA, but that was 10 years ago.
And it's a very similar experience that we have too. And I even had a team who said, "Jessica, when we did your neurodiversity session, normally when we do any of our programming like this, it's the same people who come every time. But we noticed that when we had you do your neurodiversity session, we had so many more people come to our programming who never had come before." And it's exactly to what you're saying. Like, it impacts more people than we know. And people just need a space to feel like they can actually share and talk about it. So
Well,
it's
you're doing
wonderful.
amazing work.
Thank you. Likewise.
I hope that you continue to flourish, because we really need you, maybe now more than ever. So, Jessica, thank you so much. Again, the website is neurotalentworks.org. Check it out, you guys. See how you can partner with them. Ask yourself, how can I be of benefit to them, and how can they be of benefit to me? That's really what it's all about. And I thank you so much, Jessica, for taking the time to be with us. We so appreciate it. I want to give the programming note that even though this show was recorded, we have programming all throughout this week. And then don't forget that in June, we're going to be in the new studio and unveiling it for you guys. So I will see you guys tomorrow. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you too. Bye-bye for now. If you found anything helpful in this video, please give us a like. In fact, make sure that you smash that subscribe button on YouTube and give us a like on Facebook. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Instagram for important updates. And please download our free podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you so much. See you next time.